the energy is out there. Yesterday, I have to admit, I got a little bit tired because I was very, very busy. It was house floor activities, I had committee work to do, and there was a youth rally of sorts in Washington, D.C. But I don't know how many, but 100, 150 young kids came by the office, 10, 15 at a time. And there was no way I could turn them away. And they found out that if they come to my office, I have that little green booklet, some of you may have seen it, it's a copy of the Constitution. And I sign that for them. But they're starved for it. Some of them don't even get it in their high schools and in their classrooms. And even in my own district, some of the teachers come by to my office and they'll say, well, we want to spend a little bit more time studying the Constitution. Do you happen to have a copy? I mean, the schools don't even have them to pass them out to the kids, so we pass this out generously. And I always make the point when I hand out the book, I said, look at that. Look how small that is. And yet, it has all our answers. We don't obey it, we get into trouble. If we would obey it, we can solve our problems. Yesterday, we voted on a bill, and the bill had to do with the bailout of the housing market. That was nearly 700 pages. You know, one thing that would have stopped that cold? You know what? It would have followed that rule that nobody's even allowed to vote on a bill unless they read it.
Yeah.
Nobody read that bill. No one person knows what is in these bills because it's a collection of a lot of different members of Congress, different members of committees, different members of different staff. They put this all together and no one person can comprehend the whole bill. This year, we are not even working, no pretense that we're going to be working on each of the 13 appropriation bills. They're planning an omnibus bill. You know, and that means throw it all together. It'll probably be this big. It'll be at the last minute. When everybody wants to get out of town, nobody is going to know what is in there. So I have a pretty safe rule. It keeps me out of trouble. That is, if it's too big to read, if it comes up too late, or I don't know what the devil's in there, I vote no.
Yeah.
For a long time, I have, on occasion, taken a vote by myself. And it's a no vote. And for many years, I always assumed, well, this is risky. One of these days, it's really going to hurt me in my district. But you know what? It's the opposite. It builds credibility in the district. You know where I could be into trouble? Is if I don't vote no and vote with everybody else, and it should be a no because I know you'll be watching and you'll know it should have been a no. So it is so easy to drift into this, to go along, to get along, and you have to vote and not vote on principle. That to me is the most important thing. But the country is really waking up. I am a lot more optimistic today than I was a year and a half ago. Not because of the economy, and not because of our foreign policy, and not because of our national defense, and not because of the continuous threat of a terrorist attack. But I'm more optimistic because the people are way ahead of the Congress, miles ahead, and they know what's wrong and they know what ought to be done. And one of the reasons why I'm the most optimistic is when I give this message, especially to the college kids in the crowd, and I talk about it, I never go in, and they would never dare ask me, are you going to vote for grants for college students? You know, because I don't believe in it. Because it's not in the Constitution. But I tell them the story. I tell them what's going on in the country. I tell them this country is bankrupt. And that we live on borrowed money and printed money. We're overextended, and we're paying the price. People don't want our dollars as much before. So that means prices go up. We have a weaker dollar. We've had so many bubbles. We've had NASDAQ bubbles and housing bubbles. But the big bubble is becoming more apparent than ever before, and that is the dollar bubble. And the dollar bubble is starting to crack. It's starting to leak out. And what are we doing up in Washington? The Congress and the Federal Reserve. I can just see, if I could draw a cartoon, I'd have the Congress on one side and the Federal Reserve on the other side, and this balloon is deflating, and they're pumping away to try to keep that balloon inflated. And they can't do it. It's impossible to do it. So this week I was on a couple of the talk shows on business channels, and I think it was on Fox Business and Fox News. He said, now, he says, I understand your position. He said, but if you have your way, and there's a major reaction to your method, and I conceded there would be. You know, if we quit bailing out, I mean, you have to pay the price. And there would be some difficulty. He says, would you take any responsibility for the crisis that you brought on? I said, no, I'm not going to take any responsibility. It's the people who created the bubble, created the deficit. They're the ones at fault. But the point is, if we continue to do what we're doing, it's going to be much worse than the pain that we have of finally cutting off the money machine. And this is what young people will accept. When I present this case, you know, what I do is offer them out of the system. I'd like to say that, it's, you know, to start with, no student, you know, who's still studying in high school or college or graduate, no student should have to be paying income tax. Why collect money from one group and give them free money and try and get them through college when you have them, there's some who are energetic to go and work and they earn money, and then we chip away at Social Security and income tax and the whole nonsense. So the sooner we get this idea that we can be responsible. And why I was so impressed is young people said, yes, they're willing to do that. If they can get out of the tax system, they don't care about Social Security. They know they're not going to get it. And that really encouraged me. You know, and another thing that has been a consequence of the campaign that I'm very pleased about is that I've been doing the same thing, I figured, for all these years. And my assumption was that my role was to be to get elected in a district, state my principles, take my oath of office serious, and then get reelected. And at least prove to the district that you can stick to your guns, vote by yourself, explain those positions, and get reelected, and then do your best to get reelected with an increasing margin. And I've been able to do that, and this year, in spite of the fact that some Republicans have to campaign and work, I don't have a Democratic opponent this year. So, you know, this is... But I've been pleased because the carryover has been, especially on economic issues, is that now, if I do what I've been doing and nobody paid any attention, just think of all those years that Alan Greenspan came before our committee. I asked the same questions over and over again, pestered him to death, and razzed him to death because he used to be a gold standard Randian who believed in free markets and all this, and he's up there being the biggest inflator in our history and the biggest bubble maker in history, and yet, you know, just went by the way. So I figured my role would be to just leave a record and leave a standard and hopefully be as correct as I can, study the bills, and do my best to do the right thing. So I never really expected to all of a sudden have few people pay attention, and that's what has happened. But the carryover is that now we have a lot of people interested in monetary policy. I see so many young people come out. I had never heard about the Federal Reserve System. Now I'm studying the Federal Reserve System. What should I read? And I introduce them to the Mises Institute, and the Murray Rothbard, and the various economists, and they are looking and studying, and that is the future. Because countries don't move by politicians. Sorry, Virginia, we don't have much to say about it. It is the ideas that really count. It's what's taught in these universities. It's what's taught the younger generation, because it is a prevailing attitude that really counts. Because those are the individuals that will become the teachers and the writers and the people in the media and the people that write plays. So it's an attitude. Unfortunately, for the last 100 years, the attitude's been wrong, but it's shifted. It's not so much that we've had a miracle exposure of these views. It's a combination of these views became available at a time that two things were happening. One, the evidence that the system we have today is not working is very, very clear. And that has been important. The other thing is there's been a way to overcome the closing down of information by, it used to be 3 major networks, and now there are more major networks. And